Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So today we can have a discussion on Eugene O Neil's autobiographical play, Long Day's Journey into Night. And this was the play which was awarded the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award posthumously on 1957. And Eugene O Neil was the first American dramatist to regard stage as a literary medium and the first US playwright to receive a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1936. And the four main characters in this autobiographical play are representations of O'Neill himself, his older brother, and their parents. And the story deals with the mother's addiction to morphine, his father's addiction to whiskey, and also his miscellaneous, the older brother's licentiousness, and the younger brother's illness. So we can look at how Long Day's Journey into Night was made. And this play is a play in 4 acts, and it was written by Eugene O Neil in 1941 to 1942 and was first published in 1958. And this play is widely considered to be his magnum opus and also one of the finest American plays of the 20th century. It premiered in Sweden in February 1956 and then opened on the Broadway in November 1956, which won the Tony Award for the Best Play in 1957. And O'Neill posthumously received the 1957 Pulitzer Prize for Long Day's Journey into Night, which has been repeatedly staged in various parts of the world. It was also made into a 1962 film and adapted for the British television in 1973, also as an ABC TV film in 1982 and made for TV film in 1987. And this play talks about the Tyron family, which consists of parents James and Mary and their sons Jamie and Edmund. So Mary is addicted to morphine and Edmund is ill with tuberculosis. And the title, The Long Day, refers to the setting of the play, and this play takes place during one day. It takes place during one day, and the play is semi-autobiographical. And we can have look at the history of this play. And O'Neill finished revising the manuscript into its final version in March 1941, and he did not want it to produce this as a play and also did not want it to publish during his lifetime, and he also did not copyright the play. In 1945 he had a sealed copy of the manuscript given as a document to publisher Random House, instructing that it is not to be published until 25 years after his death. He also sent a second sealed copy of the O'Neill collection. He also sent a second sealed copy to the O'Neill collection at Yale University. Soon after O'Neill's death, his widow Carlotta Montori demanded that Long Day's Journey into Night must be published at once, but the publishers were not ready because it was said because Eugene O Neil wanted this play to be published only after 25 years after his death, but his wife was against that, and due to the demands of his wife, this play was published by Yale University Press in 1956, and it was published in 1956. Now we can look at the synopsis of the play, and the play is set in the summer house of the Taran family, which is in August 1912. The action of the play begins in the morning just after breakfast, and in the Act 1 we can learn about the fact that Mary has returned to her family recently after receiving treatment in a sanatorium for morphine addiction. And Edmund, who is the younger son, has in the recent weeks begun to cough very violently. And both Tyron and Jamie is the eldest son, Taran is the father, and they both suspect that Edmund has tuberculosis. And throughout the course of the play, we slowly finds out that Mary is still addicted to morphine. Even though she was admitted to sanatorium for morphine addiction, she did not she is still addicted to morphine, and this was a disappointment to her family members. And these two medical disasters, that is Mary's morphine addiction and Edmund's tuberculosis, and this two other makes up the whole play's plot. And in between these discoveries, the family, that is mostly Jamie and Tyron, argues about argues and openly talks about their past, which the family members are unable to forget. Tyron, for example, is constantly blamed for his stinginess, and this was the main reason which have led to Mary's morphine addiction. Because as after so both Mary and James Tyron have three kids. Actually, they have three kids. First one is Jamie, second one is Eugene, and third one is Edmund. So but the second child, Edmund, died due to measles, and it was said that it was Jamie uh, who have given him the measles when Jamie was 7 years old. So both Mary decided that she is not interested in giving birth again. But Tyron said that okay, so Eugene is dead, so if they are giving birth to a new child, it will be replaced. The son can replace Eugene's space. So they decided. So they gave birth to Edmund, the youngest child. So, and it was a difficult pregnancy. So she was in during the birth, she was in an unbearable pain. So Tyron went to see a doctor who was very cheap, and this doctor gave morphine in order to suppress the pain, but he did not talk about the side effects of it. And one of the side effects of taking morphine was its addiction. So Mary says that it was due to Tyron's inability to use the money, that Mary is suffering from morphine addiction. And Mary, on the other hand, is never able to let go of the past or admit to the painful truth of the present. And the truth of was that she is addicted to morphine. So she's not admitting to the fact that she is still addicted to the morphine. She always denies that she is addicted to the morphine. And she also denies that her younger son Edmund have tuberculosis. And they all argue over Jamie and Edmund's failure to become success, as their father have always hoped they would become. And as the day goes on, the men drink more and more until they are on the verge of passing out in Act 4. So the first child, Jamie, is an alcoholic and is a person who spends his money on alcohol and prostitutes, while Edmund is not somewhat similar to Jamie, but he is more interested in writing poetry and so on. His father was an actor, just like Eugene O Neil's father. And that's it about the synopsis of the play. And most of the plot, so there are 4 acts, and most of the plot of the play is repetition, just as the cycle, just like a cycle. The plots are repeated towards each act, and the argument towards each family members are repetitively occurs throughout the 4 acts and 5 scenes. And all the acts are set in the living room, and all scenes but the last occur either just before or just after a meal. Act 2, scene 1 is set before lunch. Scene 2, Act 1, Act 2, scene 2 is set after lunch, and Act 3 before dinner. And each play focuses on interplay between 2 specific characters. Act 1 features Mary and Taran. Act 2 features Tyron and Jamie and Edward and Mary. Act 3 features Mary and Jamie, and Act 4 Tyron and Edmund, and also Edmund and Jamie. Now we can look at the characters in the play. Character sketch of each characters in this play. And the first one is James Taran Senior, and he's 65 years old, but he looks 10 years younger and is about 5 feet 8 inches tall, but appears taller due to his military-like posture and bearing. He is a broad-shouldered and deep-chested and remarkably good-looking for his age, with light brown eyes. His speech and movements are those of a classical actor with a studied technique, but is unpretentious and not temperamental at all. And his attire is somewhat threadbare and shabby. He wears his clothing to the limit of usefulness. He has been a healthy man his entire life and is free of hang-ups and anxieties except for fear of dying, and is obsessed with having money. He smokes cigars and dislikes being referred to as the old man by his son. He is the husband of Mary and father of Jamie and Edmund. He was once a famous actor who toured the US with his life. Because his Irish father abandoned him to work immediately to support himself, Tyron had a strong work ethic and an appreciation for money that leads to strong financial prudence bordering on stinginess. The next character is Mary Kavan Tyron. She is 54 years old and is the wife of Tyron and mother of Jamie and Edmund. She is a morphine addict, and this addiction has lasted for more than 2 decades. She is of medium height with a young, graceful figure, and she has a distinctly Irish facial features. She was once extremely pretty and is still striking. She wears no makeup and her hair is thick, white and perfectly combed. She has large, dark, almost black eyes. She has a soft and attractive voice. She is on morphine in each scene of the play, and her use increases steadily as the days goes on. Although Mary loves Tyron, she oftentimes regrets marrying him because of the dream she had to sacrifice of becoming a nun or a concert pianist. And her dream was to become a nun or a concert pianist. Our next character is James or Jamie Jr. He is the eldest son of both Tyron and Mary. His age is of 33 years old. He has thinning hair and shows signs of premature disintegration. He has a habitual expression of cynicism. He resembles his father. So Jamie resembles his father, and he's attractive to women and popular with men. He just like his father, he's also an actor, but he has difficulty finding the work due to reputation of being an irresponsible womanizing alcoholic. So he was both an alcoholic and womanizer, and he spends his money on both alcohols and women. He and his father argue a great deal about this behavior of Jamie, and Jamie often refers to his father as Old Gaspard, and this was a character from an opera. And this character of Old Gaspar was a great miser. So Tyron was also just like Old Gaspard. Tyron was also a miser. He did not spend money. He is addicted. He is obsessed with making more and more money. And he dropped out of several colleges and has very little ambition. And this created a disappointment for his parents. Next one is Edmund Tyron. He is the youngest Tyron son. He is 23 years old and more intellectually and poetically inclined. So he is more intelligent than his elder brother Jamie, and he was interested in poems. He is thin and he looks like both his parents but more like his mother. He has a big dark eyes and a hypersensitive mouth. and his face is narrow with dark brown eyes and red highlights from the sun. Just like his mother, Edmund is extremely nervous. He is in bad health and his cheeks are sunken. Later, as the play progresses, he is diagnosed with tuberculosis, which means that he will have to spend up an year in a sanatorium. Like his brother and father, Edmund is partially alcoholic and has a tendency to squander money, although he works harder than Jamie. He is politically inclined to have socialist learnings, so Edmund is socialist. He traveled the world by working in the merchant navy and caught tuberculosis while abroad. Mary always holds out hope that he will become a successful man one day. The next character is Kathleen. She is a Tyron family maid, and she is in her early 20s with red cheeks, black hair, and blue eyes. And she is considered as amiable, ignorant, and clumsy. And she appears briefly in the play, and she is also considered as flirtatious. And by Act 3, she is drunken. Several characters are also referenced in the play, but they do not appear on stage. And those characters are Eugene Taran, and he was a son who was born before Edmund, who died of measles at the age of 2. He was infected by Jamie, who was 7 at that time and had been told not to enter Eugene's room but disobeyed. Mary believes that Jamie had the intent of hurting Eugene. Next one is Pritchett, who is a cook, and another character is Maguire. He's a real estate agent who has swindled James Taran in the past. Shaughnessy, who is a tenant on a farm owned by Tarrants. Harker is a friend of James Taran. He owns a neighboring farm to Shaughnessy, with whom he gets into conflicts, often postulated to be based on Edward Harkness, who is a Standard Oil hire who had a summer home nearly in Waterford, Connecticut. The other character is Dr. Hardy. He is a Tyrant's physician whom the other family members don't think much of. The other character is Captain Turner, who is Tyrant's family's neighbor. The other character is Smythe, who is a garage assistant whom James hired as a chauffeur for Mary. Mary suspects that he is intentionally damaging the car to provide work for the garage. The other character is Mistress, the woman with whom James had an affair before his marriage and who had later sued him, causing Mary to be shunned by her friends as someone with undesirable social connections. The other character is Mary's father. He died of tuberculosis. And then James' parents and siblings. The family immigrated to United States when Jamie was 8 years old. 2 years later, the father abandoned the family and returned to Ireland, where he died after ingesting rat poison. It was suspected suicide, but James refuses to believe that. He had 2 other brothers and 3 sisters. So that's all. I hope you understood this play. See you soon with another content. Bye.